There you are.
Hello.
Hey. Hi. So this is Media Innovation Lab 2015. This
Hi,
is Helen Baxter.
everyone.
Come, just gather a little bit more if you mind. That's all right. Yeah, that's all right. Forget it. It's fine. Okay. So yeah. The class has done a good bit of the Creative Business Toolkit Planner, maybe up to number 3 or 4. Some of anywhere from number 1 to 4. You know. So they have a kind of an idea of what's going to happen here. And the Hangout looks good. It's on our big screen, a big,
Cool.
huge presentation screen. So yeah, I'll hand it over to you.
Okay, great. So I'll try and drive from my end, and we'll see how it
Yes.
goes. But hi everybody. So yeah, I'm Helen Baxter from Mohawk Media. I'm really pleased to be here again this year. As Dan's probably told you, we've been doing this session for a few years now. But every year it's slightly different because, of course, things change. But what doesn't change is the need to really think ahead of your career and think about what steps you can be doing now to set yourself up from when when you're ready to actually start operating as an independent creative. Because I always say to people, don't wait until you graduate. If you start now and start putting the foundation in place, it makes things a lot easier. And the thing you're probably going to hear me talk about quite a bit today is the fact that, there's things have changed a lot. Not as much for you guys in the creative industries and in film and TV production, because for a long time, things have been based on networks of independent professionals, more about contracts, project by project basis work, less employees, basically. So, yeah, it's just there's a few key things that you can put into your toolkit now, and then things that you can think about in the future. So what I'm going to have a go at doing today is basically screen sharing into a couple of tools, and I'll try and remember to come back and say hi to you in between. But we're going to break things down into 3 sessions today. The first one's going to be talking about creative business structures. Then I'm going to talk into the Creative Business Toolkit that I use to run an animation company. So we produce animated infographics, and we've got a team all over the world. We've got a New Zealand voice artist in London. We've got a illustrator and animator in Vancouver who's just moved over there. Our next guy is probably going to be in Brazil. We've got people in Wellington, Lee, Waikanae. So you can see that the tools that I'm talking about today are tools we actually use to run what I call a distributed agency. And one of the first tools that I want to introduce you to, and I'm quite happy if you want to go ahead and actually set one up now, if some of you have got devices in the room, is a tool called Trello. So how many of you have heard of Trello before or have used it? Put hands up, I can see you, so cool. Great, so there's someone in the room, brilliant. Well, you're our Trello expert. No, only joking. So, yeah, it's really important. The most important thing really is just to have tools to help you manage processes and ideas and to-dos and things. So one of the first tools that I recommend is just for dumping ideas or for trying to just grapple with all of the stuff that you have on, whether it's a project, whether it's working with a team. Trello is really good for this, and as an example, I use it a lot. I used it to write my book, which I'll obviously be referring to in this session, and the book came from a lecture that I do every year, basically a workshop that I put together for the British Council a few years ago. All of my columns from the big idea, the misbehavior files, I've tried to pull them all together into one ebook that basically covers everything. And there's 300 tools in that book. So obviously I won't be showing you 300 tools today. What I've tried to do is distill everything down just to the core platforms and apps and tools that you can use just to help you manage all of your activities. So I'm going to have a go at screen sharing. So what I did this morning, I do genuinely use the tools that I introduce you to. So I'm just going to put this over here. But the first one that I've wanted to introduce you to is Trello. And I set up this morning, actually, just because I wanted to have a kind of an overview about what I was going to be covering. I basically wanted to, here we go, so there's Trello. So I set myself up a Trello board this morning to manage today, and this is the great thing, is it's really quick and easy. So you should have a link to this. This is a public Trello board that you can all all see. You can pull up on your devices, or hopefully you'll be able to see on the screen. But you can see here, this is a really simple Trello board where I've got 4 stages of items. Things I have to do, so you can see that basically there is session 1's about structure of business, session 2 is going to be about the toolkit, session 3 is about promotional apps. And then you have things to do, things that you're going to do next, things you're doing right now, so obviously it's my introduction, and then things that you've done. And you can see that in each of these lists you have cards. And these are fantastic because you can see when you click onto a card, you can put pictures up, you can put links in, you can do checklists, and you can make notes. So Trello is a really fantastic place for just dumping all of your actions and activities and to-dos, and then put them into some order so you know what you need to do next. Because that's the difficulty when you're managing lots of projects, lots of teams, lots of activities. It's trying to work out what you should be doing with your time right now. Without getting buried. Yeah.
Is Trello also a collaborative tool as well?
Yes, it is. Yeah, the handy thing about Trello is you can use it for your own individual needs, but you can also invite other members into your team. So what I would suggest is that you all set up a Trello board for your own personal use, and then if you're starting to do projects, I can just come back to you a minute so you can see me. Yeah, if you're starting to work on projects where you're working group activities, Trello is a really fantastic way of coordinating all of those group activities. So, for example, you can see in the, I'll go back to Trello now, and you can see that, for example, if I wanted to invite in someone else into this board that I've just set up, there we go, back to here. Yeah, so I would be able to go along to add members, and I'm just going to add Kelvin, for example, who's our creative director. Let me just see, sorry, over here, Kelvin. So do a search for someone who's on already. Wait to do the search, and you can see that, I can't add him at the moment because his account's inactive, but yes, you can have multiple people on a multiple board. So it's fantastic for doing group projects where everyone knows what everyone else is doing at the time, and it's really important that you kind of have what we call activity streams to enable you to basically coordinate activities between teams, because it gets complicated. So you can see in, back to screen sharing, you can see in my Trello board that in the first card that I have coming up here, just a little bit about me. So yeah, I run Mohawk Media. I also have written a book, Dance at Work. I'm a co-founder of the League of Pragmatic Optimists. If anyone wants to know about that after the session, you can just ask me. And if you're interested, you can check out my LinkedIn profile. And LinkedIn is something that we're going to talk about later in the promotion section. So using Trello for notes today, 3 sessions, half-hour chunks, workshops in between. And you can see, I've told you this now, so I can start to check these things off. So you get a sense of how you can use Trello to put things into the list. And down the right-hand side here, you can see a full stream of activities. So this saves you having to go and check with someone, have you done that yet? Because if they've ticked it off in Trello, it's been done. So this is the challenge when you're working with multiple teams, multiple projects, multiple locations. It's just keeping up to date with how far along people are in the work that's assigned to them. And I love these tools because I don't have to spend my time running around checking and saying, have you done it yet? Because I can just look in Trello, see it's checked off, brilliant, it's been done. So the first thing I'm going to do now is go over to the presentation. So this is a Prezi that I put together a few years ago. I've updated it, so it's pretty current. And I'm going to talk you through three sections. But the first thing I'm going to do is I'm just going to play you a very short video, which is titled "No More Jobs." It's quite a provocative title, I know, but this is the reality. Of course, there's plenty of work out there. It doesn't mean no more jobs doesn't mean that there isn't a lot of work for people to be doing. However, as I've mentioned, it's more likely now to be contractors, freelance employees, dynamic distributed teams. So since I originally wrote the book and I came together with this, since I basically wrote it, there's been a lot more studies coming out that basically agree with me. So what I'm going to do is just play you this short video clip because it's got some really good infographics in it, which just kind of set the scene of where we're at today. So here we go.
No audio, Helen?
No audio on that. Let me just work out why. Okay, I'm going to have to talk over the top of it. So basically, it's all about the fact that the rise of flexible working, this is a Virgin study that came out recently. Basically, yeah, that should be playing. But basically saying that offices are on their way out, that offices won't exist within the next 20 years. And within 5 years, they're predicting more than half the population are going to be working remotely. So this is a challenge. So you can see here, business leaders, this was a global entrepreneurship leaders forum, who basically said that within 5 years, the majority of people are going to be working remotely at least a few times a week. But that's a good thing, because there's some real benefits there. Productivity goes up, you get more time for life because you're not commuting. It gives you a lot more opportunity. You can see it impacts on the environment. And this is an interesting study, the Future Work Skills 2020 report, which was predicting what skills we need to thrive in a digital age. So you can see that new media literacy, transdisciplinary understanding, a design mindset, virtual collaboration skills, these are all really important skills to basically foster in order to work in this distributed future of people working project by project from multiple locations. So you can see that all of these reports have come out recently that are agreeing with the hypothesis I put together a few years ago. And as I said, more and more opportunities now are coming as a freelance contractor than rather as an employee. So you've got to be ready. But there's pros and cons. Generally, freelancers are happier. They're more optimistic. It's more recession-proof because if you think about it, a job is just all your eggs in one basket, whereas if you have a portfolio of clients and projects, it allows you to basically, if one client drops out, you bring another one in. So it's a lot more flexible. And you can see here that the top 15 types of freelancers now, which is great for you guys, designing, copywriting, editing. Creative is definitely their very high value skills still. So what I say is don't fear it. It's just inevitable, but it actually puts you in a lot more control. And work is what you do now rather than where you do it. Things are changing quite rapidly. I really like the idea of being able to have projects that you love that bring money and some fame, maybe. And as you can see, Richard Branson's predicting that one day offices will be a thing of the past. And I agree with him. I think it actually is that we are definitely on our way out of the concept of people having to go to a centralized space every day to work together. So don't fear it, embrace it. And I rather than having the term remote work, I prefer to call it flexible working because on one day, today for example, I'm in the studio all day. Yesterday I was working out of a coffee shop. I went and did a speech at someone else's office. On another day I might go into the Biz Dojo, which is a co-working location. On another day I might go and working with my clients. Another day I'll be doing Skypes or Hangouts. So you can see it's about flexibility and choosing the right location and the right approach for the right purpose. And always thinking about what do you want to achieve from this? What are your outcomes? So so the first thing that I want to talk through is business structure. Now hopefully some of you are going to have had a good think about how you're going to approach, how you set yourself up. And I've got a video here, but if audio isn't playing on video, you can go in and have a watch of these after, and I'll also put these videos up on the Trello board so you can watch them after today. But really, what you want to think about is trying to become a productivity ninja, and that's using processes and tools to help you focus, stay on track, and just get stuff done. And as I say, trying to get more done in less time, so you've got more time to go and enjoy yourself and have time for life. But the good thing is that a lot of these tools make it so much easier than they used to. So yeah, you can see that what we do is we make animated infographics. Here's my various spaces and places you can follow me at. And you can see we work with illustrators, animators, voice artists, script writers, all sorts of creative professionals pulled together. Everybody works from a network of home studios, and it just works because we have good tools. So the first thing you really need to be thinking about, and the first thing that I hope you've been planning with your work planner, is thinking about what identity you're going to choose as an independent professional. because your online identity is vital. Your brand, your, you know, the way that people recognize you for you and your work is key. The great thing is that you have the ability now with the digital tools to be able to be in complete control of your brand, and you know, just stick to it. I do see young journalists coming out, and they'll set up a Twitter account, and they'll basically set it up at the account of their employer. You'll often see this, TV3, you know, that there might be a TV3 journalist, and they'll actually have TV3 underscore and their name. And I don't encourage people to do that, because what you're doing is you're promoting your organisation before yourself. So yeah, think long and hard about how you're going to operate, and there's pros and cons of two ways. Some of you may want to use your name. This does happen a lot in the creative industries, but some of you may also want to come up with an idea of a company name. And it really is about what you want to do long term. Are you building up a business so you can have a professional career? Are you building up a business because you want to sell it down the line? In which case, having a brand is a lot better idea than your name. You do get this in fashion. Fashion designers who operate under their name, and then they sell their name to somebody else, and they can no longer use their name for their designs. So, you know, it's worth considering. But the most important thing when you're coming up with your trading name, as it is, your brand, is be wary of a thing called passing off, which is a legal term to protect consumers and to protect people in the marketplace. Basically, it's to stop someone coming along, let's say a sandwich, a burger shop, setting up as McDonald's, copying the logo and sort of passing themselves off as McDonald's. So you can see that you do need to be aware of, and that actually is illegal. You're not allowed to give the impression that you are another organization. So what the phrase is that you have to be careful to not operate as a similar or same name in a similar or same industry. So the thing to do is, when you're coming up with your name ideas, is just have a think about have a search around, see who is already in the industry. It doesn't matter if your name is the same as someone who's doing something completely different, but let's just say McDonald's burgers and McDonald's burgers. You know, you can see that you wouldn't be able to do that. And companies generally protect their names through trademarks. And this is something that you should consider. It's not a bad idea, especially if you're choosing a trading name or a brand name, to register a trademark for this purpose. It costs about $100. And it's well worth it. It's just part of your toolkit. So there's some links in the workbook planner for you to go to, which basically point you to the relevant sites, which are checking the company's registry in New Zealand to see if there's an existing company that has a similar name. If there isn't, not a problem. If there is, as long as they're in a different industry, again, not a problem. Go through search engines, not just Google. Search through as many other search engines as you can think of. Go to the Intellectual Property Office of New Zealand, do a search for a trademark, see if anyone's registered a trademark, and then you can have a think about domain names and basically what domain name you might want to operate under. And there's different options. You can go for a .com or you can go for a .nz. We chose to register our company name as a .co.nz because we were happy to be associated with the creative industries of New Zealand. But there's plenty of options out there, and you'll see more and more unusual domains now, like .me, .tv. So really, you know, the most important thing is once you've defined what name you're going to operate under, stick to it. And at the end of this presentation, I'll show you through a few tools. And one of them that I really love, when you're sitting and thinking about what name you might set up, because obviously it will affect social media platforms. You know, the most important thing is it has to be consistent. You have to stick to the same name. Once you've chosen it, stick to it. Don't confuse people. So Namecheck is a great site that allows you to just tap in your chosen name and just see across about 250 social media channels whether someone already has that account. And believe me, when you're coming up with project ideas and names and brands, it saves so much time not having to go to each individual space and place and check it. I set up brands and names a lot for projects. So, for example, this weekend at the Cuba Duper Carnival, I've been involved in a pop-up arcade project where we're going to be showcasing games made in Wellington in the day, and then at night time we're doing a giant Mario Kart tournament projected onto the side of a building. So I needed to come up with a brand and identity for this specific project. And it's going to be a disposable one in this instance, but you can see that thinking about brand and identity isn't just for operating as you as an individual, but it may well be for some of the projects that you do down the line. Let's say you might work together as a group of you to do a short film or something. That film may need its own brand and identity. So it's always good to look ahead and think about what you want to do with it, and then you can make the decision as to what's the best solution for you. So moving on to structure. Basically, this is the thing with modern business structures. They've all kind of adopted what I used to call the Hollywood model. So this is the idea that instead of having one large organization that basically makes a film, that's not how film business works. The film business is made up of lots of networks of companies, individuals, dynamic teams, all coming together for the specific part of the project that they have an expertise in, and they all work together as a group to produce the film. And then afterwards they break up and they move on, and some of them might move on and work with the same directors. So, you know, Tim Burton's a good example of this. He works with very similar production teams, he works with the same actors. You know, he's got a very sort of Farnow based organization. But this Hollywood-style model is now moving across to lots of other industries. It's not just film and TV production anymore. This is now kind of moving into software development and all sorts of different spaces. And the idea being that it's dynamic, flexible networks of individuals and teams. And yeah, that's the future, and I think it's great because it gives, you know, as individual creative professionals, there is a lot of work out there. As long as you're able to find it, manage it, and, you know, be professional, that's the key thing. So we do need to think about contracts. You know, the fact that your first great job offer is much more likely to be as a contractor than as an employee. Doesn't mean that you will definitely be the case, but as I said, it's more likely. So the thing you need to think about is when that first job offer comes in and you're expected to send an invoice in, and, you know, you need to be ready for it. And don't fear this. Once you've got your processes in place, it's quite easy. You just do the same process for each job that comes in. But the thing to be aware of is you don't actually have to form a company in order to have an identity as a company. Basically, the way it works is as soon as you get your first client and that first client gives you money, you are just by default operating as what we call sole trader. And all you have to do is make sure that you hang on to all of your receipts and you keep a track of everything you spend. So that's all the equipment that you buy, books, travel expenses, food costs when you're on the road, or anything that's directly related to you being able to deliver work to your client becomes an expense, which you can then claim against the income that you bring in. So it's actually really good. I mean, again, GST registration is worth thinking about. You don't actually have to do it to start with, but the bigger the clients that you work with, the more likely it is they will just expect this. So like I said, don't fear it. And a good thing at this point is go and have a talk to some of the students in the different, you know, the different faculties. Find yourself someone who's in law. Find yourself someone who's doing accountancy. Don't fear suits. Hire them. That's the way I see it. So, you know, down the line, you might consider that you actually do want to set yourself up as a limited liability corporation or a limited company. The benefit of that is that if anything goes wrong, the losses are only limited to the company, not you as an individual. So that's the downside of being a sole trader. Is great if everything's running smoothly and you keep all of your accounts and all your records, but if things go wrong, technically your personal assets might be seized to pay your liabilities. So the way I explain to people is that you're going to have to form a limited company eventually. Choose the right time for it. Don't fear it. It's quite a straightforward process. You can do it all online. There's plenty of great sites that talk you through it. But the most important thing is keep records. everything you spend, everything you earn, and get some good advice. That's the most important thing. You know, if it's anything to do with contracts or legal stuff, just get some good advice. There's a lot of free business, government-funded business support services that you can use, which will basically help you. So yeah, don't fear it. It's actually quite straightforward once you're up and running. So space, thinking about where you're going to be working and how you're going to be working. Now, we all have different needs from our space. I know in the workbook you'll be thinking about, you know, your own ideal working environment. And I know what mine is. I like to have lots of focus, not many interruptions. I prefer working from home studios. I don't particularly love open plan offices. They're full of distractions. But understanding a little bit about how space changes how you think is really quite important. Because the thing I'm quite fascinated about as well is brain hacks, ways of using the way that your brain works based on neuroscience to help you be more focused and more productive. And here's one of the really interesting things I came across when I was first writing an article for The Big Idea about space and how it affects the creative professional, is that ceiling height actually affects the way we think. So if you want to come up with big ideas and you know you're thinking about strategy in the future, or you're coming up with creative concepts, find a space that has a high ceiling, possibly even outdoors, the sky, you know, having that's the biggest ceiling you can have. But not so great for getting things done. So if you want to basically focus on just cranking work out, it's great to find a space that has a low ceiling. And it helps you get your head down, focus, and you know, get the work out of the door. So just think about that when you're planning your work week and all the things you have to do. And just if you have that flexibility of space, if you have the luxury of being able to choose where you do certain things, then think about it that, you know, if I'm planning and I'm being creative, high ceiling, and if I want to get stuff done, low ceiling. And here's one of the other things. You quite often get told about learning that, you know, if you have to revise and learn content, you should go to the same space every time and basically, you know, always use your revision corner. And actually that's not the case. You actually learn better in bits and bobs in different spaces and places, sort of dipping in and out. You retain more. So yeah, just thinking about moving around. I mean, keeping moving is really important. One of the worst things we do is sit solidly for hours a day, sitting and clicking. You're all going to be feeling, you know, the strains of using laptops and devices. Just keep flexible, keep moving. It's really, really important to just remember to have fitness and health as well, because believe me, you'll get to my point where, like me, I've been online now for 20 plus years, and you do, you know, RSI kicks in, so you just got to be aware of it. But standing up is really good. There's studies that have shown that creative groups who work standing up have better ideas, they're more efficient. When I used to work for a big web agency, if I really wanted to get a meeting through quickly, I used to take the chairs out of the room. And it's amazing how much quicker a meeting goes when people aren't sat down. And that's led over into agile software planning as well, that if you look at software companies now, they have what they call stand-up meetings. Going for a walk, you know, anything that gets you moving and getting the oxygen to your brain and everything cranking. So the ideal creative space is flexible and modular and is right for you. So knowing your own particular needs, knowing what works best for you is really important. So that's why that's in the plan, and that's why I think it's a really vital step to really think about, ideally, how do you like to work, so that you can basically set up your optimum working space. So independent professionals, this is the thing you have to see yourself as now, is an indie professional, an independent artist. And one of the key things is owning your own copyrights, because traditionally you would get it, you know, so let's just say music, for example. Traditionally, the dream was that you would get a deal and someone would give you lots of money to record your, you know, your album and send you out on tour, and, you know, you'd become rich and famous. Now, that actually happened for a very, very tiny amount, small amount of people. In fact, I've known a lot of people who've had big label deals who still owe the labels money. And then on the flip side, we started our company as a record label all the way back in 2004, selling online. And since then it has completely revolutionized the way that creative industries operate, because you can own your own copyrights, you can publish your own work, you can sell it, get your own fans, and actually keep a much bigger slice of the pie. So I often say the worst thing that can happen to an artist is actually getting a deal, because it constrains you in a lot of ways. And it's very, very exciting to see how many people are really embracing this space and doing really well out of it. Like with my book, I published my own ebook up online. I'm about to get my first royalty check in a few days' time from Amazon. And if I'd gone with a traditional publishing company, it would have taken me probably a few years to get that much royalties. And I will say, creating a series or a universe is really important. Thinking about, if you're making content, how could it be interconnected with other types of content that you've made? Because basically, some of the most successful artists right across different industries are people who've created universes and worlds that they do multiple content and they create multiple releases from. And I will say about, don't fear obscurity, don't fear piracy, fear obscurity. There's a lot more risk with no one knowing who on earth you are or knowing anything about your work than there is people ripping you off, seriously. But one thing that's really, really exciting, especially in the space that you're in, is the concept of transmedia. So how many of you have heard of the term transmedia? I can see you, so put your hands up if you have. Cool, a few of you, brilliant. You probably will have a chance to see one of the leading guys in the transmedia space actually was talking at Unitech last year. I think he'll be back again this year. I was lucky enough to come up for it, called Jeff Gomez. The video clip in here, The Power of Transmedia, I won't play because we're not getting audio out of video. But basically, have a look afterwards and go and have a read around some of his work. Transmedia is a really exciting space, especially for what you guys are doing with visual media, visual and video and film as a medium, as a storytelling device. Because the way that he describes it is borderless story worlds. And it's really exciting, the concept of coming up with a story and a set of characters, fitting them within a universe or a world, and then telling multiple interconnected stories in lots of different mediums and lots of different formats. So people get to follow your story across different platforms and different channels. It's really, really exciting space. And obviously, the more platforms and channels you're out on, your story has been released into, the more money you make, because multiple platforms allow you to have multiple income streams. And that's what you're aiming for. The ideal situation is to have a portfolio of projects, clients, and your own work, your own content that you are creating, that you own the intellectual property of. And over time, this is the strategy that we have currently with Mohawk, is that ultimately we want to be our own clients. We've got some very big long-term transmedia projects which we're cooking up, which uses all the skills that we use for our clients, so animation and storytelling and voice and illustration, all that kind of stuff. And bit by bit, we want to be doing more of creating more content for us and less for clients, until ultimately, fingers crossed we get to that at some point in the future, we can work for ourselves full-time as full-time artists. But you can't go straight there. That's the thing. You have to think about working towards your goal in stages, but making sure that when you're doing, all this work for other people, you still do a little bit of work for yourself, that you still have a side project on the go that's yours, that you own, that you can develop ongoing. So yeah, but it's just, there's never been a better time to be an independent creative. And I've been saying this for a few years now, and it's getting better and easier every year. So the key thing that you really want to be thinking about is how can you set up your processes, and how can you set up tools and applications to be as productive as possible. Because we don't have a problem with time. People all talk about the fact that, oh, I don't have any time to do things, and it's like you have just as much time as anyone else. And some people do a lot more with their time than others. One of the quickest ways to get time back, switch off the TV. It's amazing how many hours people spend just vegged out in front of the television. I'm not saying give it up altogether, but it's extraordinary how long people take just watching other people's stuff when they could be making their own stuff. But there's a few good tips about productivity, and I'm going to show you some tools after this mini session that you can then go and have a look at. But the key sort of tips that I would say, if I was going to give you a short list, are first things first. First thing in the morning is the time when you're freshest, when the time when your brain's the sharpest. There's a lovely phrase, eat a frog first thing in the morning, and then everything you eat for the rest of the day is going to taste great. So think about what's that one task that you really don't want to do, get it out first thing, and then the rest of the day's brilliant because you get to work on the stuff that you do want to be doing. So avoiding interruptions, this is a big one. I was talking about this the other night about how it's really important to respect flow time, especially for creatives, especially for the kind of work that you do, because it's so easy to someone just to come over, especially if you're doing something that takes deep focus, like let's say editing. So you're in the edit suite. How annoying it is when you're in there and you're thinking about all these editing decisions you need to make, and you've got the big picture in your head, and someone comes in and they just, can I just ask a quick question? And then it takes you half an hour to get back into the flow time again. So the key thing is doing as much as possible to create flow time so you can focus and get your head down and get stuff out, because it's not time that we are struggling with, it's a lack of focus, down to the fact that we've got all of these feeds, all of this information coming at us constantly. It's really hard to filter out the noise. So one of the best bits of advice I can give you is switch off alerts on your phones. I know that might seem kind of difficult because you want to know if someone's messaging you, but every time an alert comes in and it basically interrupts you and breaks your focus, you've wasted time. So I'm all about choosing the time that you connect with your messages in your inbox, setting opening times for your inbox. I mean, that might sound really quite radical, but it is amazing how much you get done when you just switch your inbox off for a few hours and focus on the work you have to do. So I don't have any alerts on my phone. I choose, what comes through to me during my deep flow time, and then I will have open for interruptions times as well. So it really is thinking about what's the purpose, what do you want to get out of the time that you're spending. Remembering nothing's ever perfect. It's a matter of just getting it out there sometimes. Time management, batch processing tasks is a really good tip, because basically it's one of the other difficulties is that it can be really difficult to switch your head between different types of activities and different types of tasks. So for example, there's certain days when I have to deal with people. I have to go for meetings. I have to go and go for coffees. I have to go and visit a client. So I try and book a load of meetings together on the same day, because I'm going to be out anyway. I'm not going to be getting much stuff done. And then I have different days, which are usually a Tuesday and a Thursday, where I try and book myself in for the day. And I focus then on admin, following up inquiries, doing all of the project management stuff I have to do, checking in with my team, and actually writing and getting work out of the door. If I have to do money tasks, let's say I have to invoice, I have to pay bills, I chunk off usually about 90-minute sessions, because 90 minutes is a good length of time that you can focus for, but you need a little bit of time at the beginning, at the end, to warm your brain up and then cool down to switch into a different task. But this is the thing, if you do similar tasks in a similar time frame, you'll do them all a lot quicker, and you won't have that stress of switching between different types of activities. So think about planning your time, designing your ultimate time for the week, batching off 90-second chunks for different types of activities, and the most important thing, knowing when to say no. Now obviously it's really hard if people want your time, they want your advice, they want to, you've just got to really think about times when you're open for interruptions and you're able to help people, and then think about times when you just have to say no, I'm sorry, I just don't have time, I've got stuff to do. Because time is really precious and it has to be managed, otherwise you'll just run out of it constantly. And then there's a couple of books in this presentation that I recommend you have a look at. They're both free, they're both excellent. One of them is called T-Shirts and Suits, which is by a guy called David Parrish, and it's all about basically running a creative business. The other one that I really recommend is the Free Freelancers Guide, which is from a site called Clients from Hell. Anyone heard of Clients from Hell? It's well worth a look. If you, I can see someone in the corner. It's a wonderful, wonderful site that is full of stories that have been real life client stories that have been shared by designers and creatives. And some of them are absolutely hilarious. But there's also comments in that where people say, well, yeah, that happened to me, and this is what I did with it. So it's funny. It's really, really funny, but it's also really quite informative. And the book that they've written, The Free Freelancer's Guide, is excellent. So there's a couple of free ebooks that you can go and basically, you know, I really recommend them. If there's only a couple that you look at, those two are really good. So that's just the overview of creative business structure. So what I'm going to do is just go through a few tools, but before I move on to that, any questions?
What's your guideline for determining when you don't allow interruptions and when you do?
Yeah, it's I generally try and keep mornings focused, and then I'm usually open to interruptions in the afternoon. I've generally found it's that first session in the morning is pretty good. People don't usually hassle you until after 10, 10:30, 11 when they've warmed up for coffee. So, and another thing is sometimes I won't check my email until 11 a.m. Just to get stuff done out the way, because it's a really good feeling as well when you think, hey, I've actually done all of my big jobs for the day and it's only 10:30. And I'm not an early riser, by the way. I'm really not. I'm a late night owl. I have to kind of. There's a very good article by a guy called Paul Graham, who's behind Y Combinator, big venture capital company that's really successful. I mean, they funded Airbnb, things like that. He's written a fantastic essay. I'll make a note and I'll feed it into the Trello board afterwards. But he talks about the difference between the maker's schedule and the manager's schedule. And this is really important because you're going to come across this in your day-to-day life. Now, we're all makers. We're people who think, design, create, do. Some of us have to do the managery stuff. You know, you do have to know how to do production and account management and all of that stuff. But that's the stuff we kind of do as well as. And the key difference between the maker's schedule and the manager's schedule, and Paul Graham talks about, he calls coders and developers makers as well, because you know, coding, creating is a very, very similar headspace as designing and you know, doing concepts and ideas. And the fact is that you have to not be distracted. The problem comes is managers work in chunks of 1 hour. So they'll have a meeting for an hour and then they'll go and have another meeting for an hour. And they won't think anything of booking you in for a 1 hour meeting first thing. But to a maker, that could be half a day gone, because you've got your 90-minute flow time, you've got your warm-up, and you've got so you've got your 90-minute flow time, you've got your warm-up, and then you've got your the actual flow time that you have. So this is one of the clashes that you get with basically planning time, is some days you have to think like a manager, meetings, going, getting stuff. Other days you have to think like a maker, which is generally 2 half-day chunks of production time. So yeah, that's one of the clashes that you do get in sort of creative industries, is sometimes working with people who don't really understand the creative process and how much thinking time goes into it. So yeah, I think, yeah, mornings for doing and then afternoons for distracting is probably the best. And using headphones is good. If you can have, it's good to have the discussion with members of your team as well about when you're open to distractions. So I used to have a thing that if I have my headphones on, don't distract me. If I've got one headphone on, one headphone off, I'm open to distractions. So you have a conversation with everyone that you have to work with and basically have to think about how, you know, or even just setting times, which is what we do here. It's like, don't bug me in the morning, after 1 o'clock, no problem. So any other questions? No? Okay, cool. So I'll just very quickly, I'm going to show you through, I won't go to all of these because it'd be good to have a break in a minute and let you basically have a think about what I've talked about and actually go through some of these tools yourself. But if you need to search your company name, go to business.govt. Trademark searches, IPONs. social media site name check. So definitely run your ideas through name check. It's really, really useful. Some tips for productivity, because as we've said, one of the biggest problems is attention and focus. When I've got a day when I need to seriously crank things out, I use a tool called Pomodoro, which is a timer. And I'm just going to do a click on marinara timer, and you can have a quick look and see what... so this is a marinara timer. And basically, you can set up a traditional Pomodoro, or you can set up one that works with your ideal kind of work pattern. But basically, it lets you work on so you can see here, if I'm just going to set one up now, I'm going to set up a traditional Pomodoro timer, start it, and you can see that you basically have 25 minutes focus sessions followed by a short break of 5 minutes, and then it plays you a noise. So it's really useful when you're having one of those days when you're spinning around in circles and you really, really cannot focus. Use Pomodoro, because what it does is it gets you deeply focusing for 25-minute chunks, and then you take a 5-minute break, go for a walk, move around, jump up and down, have a coffee, whatever. But at the end of these focus break sessions, it's amazing what you get done. And when you have this big clock ticking away on screen, it reminds you that you're actually getting stuff done, and you have to focus. So yeah, that's my secret weapon. Pomodoro is my secret weapon when I'm really, really struggling with focus, is I just stick this on. It also helps if someone comes into the studio and they see you've got a Pomodoro up on screen, they won't come over and hassle you. So yeah, good trick, that one. So going back into the Trello board, I will just go through. So yeah, so basically what you need to be thinking about is focus, attention, and energy management, because that's one of the other things about focus is it gets harder during the day as your energy levels drop. So it's really important to realize that, you know, energy is finite, so get the most important stuff out of the way as quickly as possible, and then you can relax. Setting inbox opening times, I've talked about. Really important. Just switch your email off for at least a few hours a day, because it's just a distraction. Priorities, this is one of the really tricky things, is there's a difference between urgent tasks and important tasks. So an urgent task is someone stood next to you hassling you for something, but that might not be the most important thing you could be doing with your time. So sometimes you just have to take a step back and go, what do I actually need to achieve today, and is this a distraction, or is this what I should be doing with my time? And I've talked about switching off alerts, and I've talked about Trello. So yeah, my advice is all of you setting up with a Trello board, and basically, yeah, just start feeding in your ideas, whether it's notes, whether it's you basically using it for group projects. It's really well worth it. So that's basically my first session covered. So any questions about creative business structure and identity and strategy at this point? So I know you're working through your workbook planner, so hopefully you'll have been doing some thinking into this.
Any questions, guys?
When you say to like,
There we go.
say to promote your brand online, how are other ways you can do it offline to get the people that aren't necessarily online?
So can you just repeat the question?
So how do you, as well as promoting your brand online, how do you promote it not online as well?
Yep, to get as much of a reach as possible. I'm going to talk about promotions in the third presentation this afternoon, but it's a really good question. I mean, really, you have to think about your brand. It's not just about your logo. It's not just about your you know, it's not just about your, you know, your business cards and everything. It's also about your professionalism and what you're like to work with. One of the things I've noticed is I've worked in broadcast TV, I've worked in the music business, I've worked with, you know, really, really successful people. One of the things I've noticed over the years is that once you get over a certain level in these industries, one of the things that really stands out is how professional people are. And you'll see this on, you know, on a film set and TV. You work really hard, really long hours, and you have to be pleasant and professional to work with. And that's what, you know, because a friend of mine who is a branding expert, he actually describes a brand as a set of promises that you deliver on. So it's not just about your name, it's not just about your logo, it's not just about those identifiers that let people know you're you. It's about your body of work, it's about your, you know, what you're like to deal with and what the impression that people were left with after working with you. So you'll get this, you know, you know, what so-and-so like to work with. Oh, they're great, you know, they turn up on time, they work really hard, never had a problem with them. What's someone else like to work with? Oh, you know, really, really difficult. Who's going to get the jobs long term? So in terms of promoting yourself offline, it really is all about the package that you present as a professional person, and also about, you know, sharing your knowledge. It's all about networking with people in your industry and just generally being professional and pleasant, because they're the people who get the gigs. And I've seen this when I worked in the dance music scene business, that you saw it a lot. People whose sense of self-importance was vastly inflated over their actual skills. And you can't get away with that for very long. So yeah, it's about being consistent. It's about basically thinking really, you know, deeply into how you want to present yourself, how you want to come across, and then all the opportunities that you have to give people that perception, and make people feel really good about working with you. So yeah, a lot of it isn't just about, you know, social media and pretty logos and stuff. It is actually about delivering on your promises, which is to be, you know, a professional and personable. So yeah, hope that answers your question.
Yeah.
Any others? Okay.
Yes, there is. Wait,
So,
yeah. Salvador has. Wait, here's a question.
Okay.
Mine is like about identity with your own email, like for instance, .co.nz. What about if you are not New Zealanders? So can you just not create like .co instead of creating .co.nz? Do you have any other idea?
You might have to repeat the question for me, Dan.
Just come closer a little bit. And just speak.
My question is mostly about creating your identity. Like for instance, creating your own email .co.nz. What if you are not New Zealanders? So can you create, like, you have any other idea?
Yeah, I mean, it's really down to you. It's about whether you think about the purpose. Are you going to be working just in New Zealand? Are you going to be working internationally? Do you want to present yourself as an international professional? Do you want to, you know, I think the most important thing is, like I said, be consistent. And once you set everything up, make sure everything matches. Personally, I think being identified as a Kiwi is a good thing, especially in the international creative industries, because we have a reputation for being hardworking, innovative, creative. But you also might decide that you want to, you know, have a .com. Like I said, domain names and branding have actually changed quite a lot, because there's been quite a lot of changes in the domain name system. And I don't think the .com really has the cachet that it used to. You know, it's a kind of throwback to the first time that American corporations went online. And you can also now have a .nz. We did one of the pieces of work on our website that you can see, which is for any name, the Domain Name Commission, is explaining about the changes to the domain name system. So you no longer have to have a .co or a .org or a .net or whatever. You can just be your name .nz. So yeah,
there are also lots of, as you mentioned, they released a lot of new top-level domains, right? Like NZ, like all kinds of stuff. Like, well, TV, that's a national NZ. Actually, that's Tuvalu, but national domain name. But yeah, there are lots of new TL.
That's right. So really, it's just you've got to have a real think about how you want to come across, how you want to be perceived, and then just picking the right one. But I don't think it's a bad thing identifying it as .nz. I think the key thing is, what's more important is, once you've got your domain name, is make sure that your email runs under that domain name. So you can have a Gmail account, you can set up a domain name, and then you can basically have Gmail managing your domain name. So this is what we've got. We've got studio@mohawkmedia.co.nz, but it actually runs through a Gmail account. But when we reply or get email sent in, it's at our mohawkmedia.co.nz. So it's, but then again, when I worked a few years ago with an international TV production team on a reality TV travel show that came through the country, and they were all Bloomberg Associates workers. They were all, some of them were still using Hotmail accounts and Yahoo. You know, it was just like, okay, but it works. But I think it's, if you want to be professional, that's part of your toolkit. So, you know, get your domain name set up, point it, even if you're just pointing it to your LinkedIn account, it's important just to keep it consistent, and just making sure that you connect everything together as well. So like if you have a home page, you put your Twitter account up there, you put your LinkedIn in your SIG file for your email, all that kind of stuff, so people know the spaces and places that they can connect with you on.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So yes, it would be great to move on to the next section.
Okay.
And so yeah, go ahead.
Okay, so we'll keep going then. Fine. Okay, cool. Well, so what I'm going to do...
Yeah, go ahead. We're going to break off to a workshop. Is that right at this point?
Yeah. Yeah,
okay.
Fine. So if you want to have a break off for a workshop, and then just give me a call back when you're ready. And how long do you think you're going to need, roughly?
Oh, let's take, maybe these guys want to stand up and maybe go get a cup of coffee or something. So 15 perhaps or something like that?
Yep, absolutely perfect. I'll just wait for you to call me back.
All right, fantastic. Thank you, Helen.
Brilliant. See you soon. Okay. Bye.
Bye. Hold on, let me just stop this.